Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. And yes, it's the Olivia Rodrigo Album Bomb Week, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Alright, first off, apologies on this being as late as it is. I had some personal stuff that took priority yesterday, not going into detail about that, it is what it is. And look, it's just gonna be album bombs for the next couple of weeks anyway, at the very least. Not exactly the most interesting time for the Hot 100, in a not particularly interesting or all that good of a year, but what can you do? At least with Olivia Rodrigo, we're starting off with one of the better ones, even if she didn't quite have the courtesy to debut in a position where I could sidestep covering the majority of the songs. Thanks for that. But anyway, let's start off with our top 10. And again, as I predicted, Olivia Rodrigo found the top spot again with Vampire at number 1. It's here because of the album bomb for Guts, although I'd chalk up more of its success up to the streaming boost augmenting all of the existing radio, which might have actually spent the week bleeding airplay, but it was enough of an advantage to get there, even if it really likely won't last next week. Thank you so very much, Drake. Now this overrides Paint the Town Red by Doja Cat at number 2, which has better streaming but just cannot close that radio margin fast enough. And yet, even then it rolled past I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves at number 3, which has got more streaming than both songs, but the radio is still not touching it. And if that's not proof that any capitalist meritocracy is abundantly not a thing on Music Row in Nashville, who are just ignoring the money and airplay spins right in front of them for the easiest cash in because of petty bullshit from a decade ago, I don't know what is. Now, what it does mean is that Fast Car by Luke Combs slid down to number 4, because even despite an okay streaming week and radio being somewhat stable, it just does not have that added juice to get any higher anymore. Then there's Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift at number 5, which also has radio stability, but streaming is on the downturn and it looks like all the momentum is dried up, coming at the very end of the summer. And that's even more pronounced with Last Night by Morgan Wallen at number 6, where despite more streaming stability, the radio is dropping this off fast. Then we saw the expected album bomb spike for Bad Idea Right by Olivia Rodrigo up to number 7. It is genuinely annoying that this seems to be a non-starter on radio, someone should fix that, but it rolled past Snooze by SZA at number 8 despite its brief radio boost, and Fuck You Mean by Gunna at number 9, which also had a decent radio week even as the streaming is tapering off. Finally, we got Dance the Night by Dua Lipa at number 10, where it looks like radio probably hit its peak, and again, that's pretty much all it has. It might drop off pretty quickly. And that takes us neatly to our losers and dropouts, of which you would expect there is a lot to peel through. In the latter group, the biggest loss is probably Cupid by 50/50, neatly nabbing its year-end list spot, where Area Codes by Kali might have just scraped in, while Shake Something by DaBaby, See You Again by Tyler the Creator and Kali Uchis, Stand By Me by Lil Durk and Morgan Wallen, and Your Heart or Mine by John Party, they're handily missing it. Now for the losers. Oh my god, it's over a third of the Hot 100 again. But I'm actually going to track them here, if only for a level set before we get so many album bombs in rapid succession. So let's start off a previous one from a couple weeks back for Zach Bryan. Hey Driver with the War and Treaty at 34, Tourniquet at 45, Spotless with the Lumineers at 52, East Side of Sorrow at 55, Fear and Fridays at 75, El Dorado at 76, Ticking at 81, Summertime's Close at 82, Overtime at 86, Holy Roller with Sierra Farrell at 90, and Smaller Axe at 92. Next, let's go to the Travis Scott album bomb that's somehow still sticking around. Meltdown with Drake at 37, Telekinesis with SZA and Future at 63, Fiend with Playboi Carti at 64, and K-Pop with Bad Bunny and The Weeknd at 94. Then we get a few Karol G songs with Kiona with Peso Pluma at 42, and Mi Ex Tenía Razón at 54. And you know, while we're talking about Latin music, we got La La by Mike Towers at 57, and TQM by Fuerza Regida at 99. And you know what, hell, let's run through the other country songs pretty quickly. Truck Bed by Hardy at 73, Bury Me in Georgia by Kane Brown at 50, Love You Anyway by Luke Combs at 49, Try That in a Small Town by Jason Aldean at 43, Need a Favor by Jelly Roll at 28, and Rich Men North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony, it's still at 22. Finally, the rest of these. Sitting on Top of the World by Burna Boy at 97, Come See Me by Rod Wave at 88, it's going to rebound time next week. Put It On the Floor Again by Lotto featuring Cardi B at 79. Deli by Ice Spice at 71. Last Time I Saw You by Nicki Minaj losing big off the debut to 62. Dial Drunk by Noah Kahan and Post Malone at 38. Creepin' by Metro Boomin, The Weeknd and 21 Savage at 35. What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish at 32. Used to Be Young by Miley Cyrus at 26. And finally, both from Taylor Swift, Karma at 36, Anti-Hero at 31. Now, believe it or not, we actually got a few gains and returns this week that are disconnected from the album bomb, although I'm not exactly sure why Lagunas by Peso, Pluma and Jasiel Nunez is at 96, and Fight the Feeling by Rod Wave returning to 93 is just preempting that album bomb. That probably explains Call Your Friends getting a nice boost to 85 in our gains. Now the rest, oh god, these are not promising. With Peaches and Eggplants by Young Nudie featuring 21 Savage surviving up to 33, Save Me by Jelly Roll and Lainey Wilson up to 56, and Lose Control by Teddy Swims still having traction at 70. Now this would normally be where I would mention all the album bomb songs I would be excluding this week, but all 10 new Olivia Rodrigo songs are inside the top 40, so I guess I gotta talk about all of them. As if I didn't already review the album on my main channel. I mean, it is good, but still. But we aren't actually starting there, so with our new arrivals, number 60, Bipolar by Peso, Pluma, Jasiel Nunez, and Junior H.
Soy bipolar, me prende un gallo y empecé a volar y se me olvidó porque estaba mal.
I guess this is why Lagunas came back this week. Anyway, regional Mexican track that initially surprised me by starting with the piano line before going into the usually painfully brittle clicking acoustics. At least there's a little bit more melody to support beyond the vocal lines, but then you still realize there's not much of a way of melodic hook, and despite all the nasal braying, Peso Pluma probably has the most charisma and presence on this song. But then I translated the lyrics, of which I'm not normally minding the usual not over it post-breakup relapse from these guys. Except Peso Pluma describes this as being bipolar, because he's just so crazy that this woman's love left him, which leads to all manner of mess in its wake. Now look, I'm not saying that these guys have to be reliable narrators or anything. The song is clearly not set up like that. What I am saying is that it's pretty stupid, and nobody here has the charisma to remotely make this interesting or melodramatic, and the production cannot sell that atmosphere. So no, I don't think this is good. Next, number 51, Slow Dancing by V. Gotta be honest, I'm a little surprised how these songs from V are just drip feeding onto the Hot 100. They're never gonna last that long because the sales momentum's not sticking around, but I will say he's one of the more interesting BTS affiliated acts. I was curious about this, and I actually like this song a decent bit. It leans into a supple R&B sandy groove where the watery textures fit the more textured bass line really well. V sells the give and take of the relationship really well, especially that gut punch on the final verse where he reveals that this is a reconnection after a breakup, and then we actually get one of the better flute solos that I have heard in a while. It's the sort of textured slow burn R&B that both V and RM have proved pretty damn well working with, and I would be fine hearing more of them or even BTS in this lane. Nice surprise. Give it a shot. Number 39, Teenage Dream by Olivia Rodrigo.
Sorry that I couldn't always be your teenage dream.
So we have a lot of Olivia Rodrigo songs to get through. I can't promise I'm going to have a ton to say about all of them. Let's start off with the album closer and a pretty good song, even if nothing is going to unseat the Katy Perry track with that same title for me. But again, I do like this. It's a self-referential piano ballad with gentle touches of strings that absolutely owes a debt to Billie Eilish, especially in how the drums and guitars crash into the outro, very happier than ever. But some of the observations are pretty solid. A lot of well-formed context and a lot of the projection that's being placed on her for being young and precocious. But also how that youth, that wisdom and beauty, it's fleeting. She'd rather be not great for her age, but just good. A mirage she knows isn't built to last, and the open question of what comes next, it's scary. Now, I have mixed feelings on the choice to include some baby noises on the outro from her producer's kid as a symbol of coming adult obligations that's making it more of a statement than I think she might be intending. But outside of that choice, it's a nice song compared to number 30, Pretty Isn't Pretty by Olivia Rodrigo. Okay, it's not that bad. The big criticism I had of Guts was that when it tried to make those bigger societal critiques, it felt a little over its skis. And this is one of two examples, where Olivia Rodrigo rips into the fashion industry and self-image and the weaponized insecurity that it can all trigger, especially when it can feel so omnipresent and overpowering and, I don't know, systemic. And you know what, as a celebrity, it's probably even worse for her. It almost feels like an anti-self-esteem anthem, and while it is smarter than most, I do think the defeatism kind of rubs me the wrong way, even if it's intended to feel very relatable. And while we're here, I don't exactly think the production does it many favors. The desaturated jangling grooves, the drums that are on the edge of clipping the mix. While the waves of hazy guitar, they do remind me of a lot of late 90s pop rock, I feel like there's a spark that's missing here, especially with how the vocals feel so pressed back. It's not bad, it's fine, just not one of my favorites by any margin. Number 25, Love is Embarrassing by Olivia Rodrigo. Now, I've often cited Olivia Rodrigo's greatest strength coming in her relatability, and if there's a song that seems perfectly primed to nail Gen Z's frustrated blur of ironic deflection but also overly raw emotionality, it's probably this one. The shallow hookup that Rodrigo got way too invested in too early, the pulsating bass line that's probably the bounciest groove on the entire album, where the guitar spikes around those cymbals, and where you can palpably hear the embarrassment that she's trying to oversell to try and shield how much this actually kind of stings. It's definitely an album cut. Maybe the hook needed to swing a little bit bigger to put this in her top tier. I still had a lot of fun with this. It's a great little song. Check it out. Number 24, Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl by Olivia Rodrigo. I've kind of been on the fence about this one. On the one hand, the bass line's actually really good, and the gnarlier guitar spikes off of Rodrigo's belting pretty well, even if she's buried behind this distorted filter that they always slap over these vocals that hits the nasal whine of the guitar and the hook for a tone I really don't like. It's very 90s inspired, but not in the right way. Then there's the writing, where I'm sure we can all relate to the anxious personal replay of the morning after going to a party and wondering just how many ways you may have fucked up, with the modern touch of realizing that the guy she might have been interested in is gay. That being said, it feels like it's searching for a stronger punchline, especially as the whole homeschooled conceit, it's more left in subtext beyond just if she's homeschooled, what social suicide is going to manifest? At least not on the same scale if she actually went to school and faced social consequences. But then again, the entire joke here is me overthinking this. It's what I just did. It's a cute conceit, decent song, just doesn't quite stick for me. Number 23, Lacy by Olivia Rodrigo.
But it takes over my life. I see you everywhere. Sweetest torture, what could bear?
So almost immediately, this song got some raised eyebrows, and not just for a sudden momentum slowdown early on the project, where instead it sounds like she's writing her version of Jolene, but gets a little bit carried away in describing the beauty of this other woman. Or rather, it's a lot like Little Big Town's Girl Crush, where the bait and switch feels much hazier. And when you pair that with a gentle acoustic palette that's much more reminiscent of Boy Genius, along with the whispered, cooing vocals, outside of that bridge that builds a little bit more of a groove, but feels a a bit oversaturated and heavy. It doesn't quite merge well with the rest of the song. Well, let's be real, this feels very queer, and that's a feature, not a bug in my books. But rather than any speculation on my part, I think where I'm cooler on this might be the lyrics. More that they tip into some melodrama and feel a little more descriptively clunky than they should. It's definitely cute, I think this is a good song. I'm just not sure it pulled off just what she was intending. All I'm saying. Number 20, Logical by Olivia Rodrigo.
Changing you is possible. No love is never logical.
So I view this as the sister song to Vampire. It's anchored in the piano line with the slightest touches of acoustics swelling up really well, but where Vampire went pure theater, this goes for something more spare and wiry for the punchlines on the bridge, where she is the victim of gaslighting, and it's made all the more frustrating because deep down she does indeed love this person despite it all. It's a lot harder to end things when your own mind makes up all the excuses for you. And if you've been at all close to that sort of situation, I mean, you'll get it. Now, I do think it's a little bit oversold, but I also know some folks have gotten irked with the songwriting on the hook and all the very basic logical contradictions, 2 + 2 = 5, and I personally didn't mind it, mostly because she eventually gets more specific and those words cut. She builds to it well. It's not among my favorites of the album, but it is close. Really good song. Number 19, Making the Bed by Olivia Rodrigo.
I am getting drunk at a club with my fair-weather friends, push away who know me the best, but it's me who's been making the bed.
Not gonna lie, this is the sort of song I expected from Olivia Rodrigo, especially following in the wake of Billie Eilish, but also the sort of track that's very easy to screw up. Not quite More Money, More Problems, but in how the meteoric rise to fame is not all that it's cracked up to be. But what I really like about this track is that she's self-aware about what her image is. The wiser beyond her years teen pop star, the easy victim, alienated from both friends and fans who think they know her better than they do, but it ultimately is her choice. It's the path she chose. And with the consequences comes some of that tragedy. Now, I don't love all the production, the warbling guitars, the heavy percussion, the bass carrying more of the melody, the tempo that never quite builds fully from the verses into that hook, especially with all the buzzy distortion around the end of the hook, but it does have enough roaring cinematic bombast and a lot of commanded dynamics to tip this into greatness, at least for me. Maybe not quite her best. I do think this is something special. I'd keep up with it. Check it out. Number 16, The Grudge by Olivia Rodrigo.
But you know I can't let it go. I've tried for so long. It takes strength to forgive, but I don't feel strong.
I'm not sure why this is one of the deep cuts that took off so much, outside of some rumors that it's more tied to Taylor Swift drama that I frankly just do not think is here. And I gotta be honest, outside of a couple good lyrical turns of phrase, this is not one of my favorites. I mean, the piano line is fine, but it's a little bit too softly produced to match Rodrigo's belting, and the emotional drama in the wake of the relationship feels a lot messier, mostly because you can tell she hasn't fully processed all those emotions. And while I appreciated the self-awareness and how she just might not be strong enough to forgive just yet, I don't know, it feels like it should connect more deeply beyond a couple lines than it does. It's not bad per se, definitely a deep cut. I probably won't revisit it much. Number 14, Bongos by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion.
Better chew it up like it's gum. Then wipe your mouth when you done. I'm hot like Nevada. Pussy get pop pinata. Bitch, I look like money. You could print my face on $1. Beat it up.
Alright, I'm not surprised that Megan and Cardi teamed up again. WAP was one of those songs that felt like a genuine moment back in 2020. I actually think it's aged surprisingly well. It's still really funny, but it was also the song that left me thinking that a Cardi B album was coming, and that didn't happen. And now 3 years later, and this screams Atlantic trying to get that magic to strike twice. So let's get this out of the way now. This is not better than WAP. It's not as funny, it's not as immediately mimetic in its production or lyrical choices, and with the very minimalist vocal sample and the spare percussion, it's gonna draw that immediate comparison with more of this song being about flexing on the haters than pure provocation. So again, it didn't really do itself any favors. That being said, I do think there's there's room for both songs here. Megan and Cardi still have terrific chemistry, and that's only amplified by their tighter trade-off of bars as the song goes on. And I would argue Cardi stepped up her wordplay to match with Megan's intensity. This song's got a ton of swagger, and they can both absolutely sell it. And with the faster groove here, I can actually see this having more staying power on the dance floor. So, while I think this comparison probably puts it at a disadvantage, I still had a lot of fun with this, and more than I expected. Really damn great song. I like it a lot. I don't know, you should give it a shot. Number 13, All American Bitch by Olivia Rodrigo. Okay, we got the album opener, and man, I don't really care for this at all. I said this with Pretty Isn't Pretty, but a lot of the larger societal critique just did not land for me from Olivia Rodrigo, where I'm not sure if the songs have the gravitas to sell all the iconography they're using, or if it's more an intentional piss take and it doesn't feel as edgy as she thinks it does. I get wanting to rip into all the stupid contradictions that sold to American girls and American women, and the juxtaposition of the prettier acoustics with the rock guitar on the hook, it is directly drilling into that, but I can also tell this is a song that absolutely embraces some of its all-American elements unironically, that's also trying to take the piss out of, and it just doesn't really strike that heavier chord. I guess if I didn't have the most obvious comparison point with Ethel Cain's American Teenager, that aims way bigger, cuts way deeper, and understands this very same dichotomy way more effectively, I might be more charitable, but I've also seen Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey play multiple versions of the whole all-American juxtaposition and deconstruction, and this does not have their teeth or their glamour or their insight. I mean, it's fine, I guess, but for me it's absolutely the weakest song on Guts. That happens. And finally, number 11, Get 'Em Back by Olivia Rodrigo. Yes, I know some fans are annoyed that this is being pushed as the very obvious third single. The spoken verses against the noisier drums, the scuzzy, warped guitar. It honestly reminds me of Loser by Beck, but more likely peppered by the Butthole Surfers, that they both feel more sardonic and sour than outright surreal, paired with that huge sing-along hook that almost feels too obvious. Now, I could see some objecting to just how petty the lyrics are. This is a bad relationship where Olivia wants to get him back for, frankly, a lot of bad reasons, mostly to cause him misery. But like with Bad Idea Right, there's also that tangible hormonal attraction that gives the warped melodrama a certain amount of sense, where the huge hook cannot sidestep how much all of this is going to blow up in her face. In other words, it kind of reminds me a lot more of Mood by 24K Golden and Ian Dior for all of its adolescent trashiness, and that's a compliment. This certainly doesn't take itself that seriously. It's a lot of great fun as a result. I think this is a great song. I think this is worth sticking around. I'm happy it's a single. But that's our week. And no surprise, Olivia Rodrigo's getting the best, and it's for Get 'Em Back, with Love is Embarrassing tied for Honourable Mention with Bongos by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. What can I say? It's not as funny or provocative as WAP, but I respect the refinement. Now, worst, yeah, easy pick for Bipolar by Peso, Pluma, Jasiel, Nunez, and Junior H. But Dishonourable Mention is going to All American Bitch by Olivia Rodrigo. I'll say it again, I just do not think it works, even if I get what it's trying to do. Now, next week, yeah, Rod Wave album bomb. It will probably be interesting, but we also got Drake likely going back for that number one. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.